Hi everyone. Today I'm going to touch upon the subject of trusted documents and trusted locations. I'm going to focus mainly on trusted locations. So what exactly are trusted documents and trusted locations? How do they impact us? Well, since Office 2007, Microsoft tried to improve security, and they wanted users to ensure that they only ran code or could run code in documents and files that they knew were safe. So they added this extra layer of security. Let me just demonstrate to you here. We'll start with a Word document. All three documents I'm going to show you have a macro in the back of them. So if you run the document, a docm with a macro, you can see here what happens. As soon as there's a macro, you get a security warning and it tells you macros have been disabled. And then you have this button to enable content, which we're going to come back to in just a second. I'll close Word and we'll open the same thing, but now in Excel. You get the exact same thing, same warning bar. And in Access. Now in Access, there's an extra layer. You also get this macro warning, kind of useless because you have no options. So I've never understood why they put it there in the first place. Stop. You have one option, stop all macros. Well, then why tell me? Just stop them. And then you get this warning bar, similar to the others, but the message here is a little bit different with this enable content. I'll come back to this in 2 seconds. Before we dive into the matter 100%, I just wanted to illustrate the registry a little bit. So let's open the registry editor because we're going to be using it a little bit throughout this video. And I'm going to show you how to get to it. It's under the current user, software, Microsoft. You go down to Office, and then you find your version. I'm on version 16. You may not be, but it's going to be version 12 or higher, right? And then what you need to know about the trusted documents and trusted locations is they're not universal to Office. They are specific to each application. So that's why in the Registry Hive, they're separated under each application. So Word has its own set of trusted documents and trusted locations. Excel has its separate list. Access has its separate list. So if you're creating trusted documents or trusted locations, and let's say you've got an Excel file and a Word file and an Access file in the same folder, well, then you've got to do it 3 times. And I'll just show you more specifically exactly where it's stored. If we take Access, for instance, and we click on it, you come down under Security, and as you can see, it's very clear. You have a list here of trusted documents. You click on it, and you get Trust Records. Or for trusted location, same thing. You click on it, and you get your listing that'll be appearing here. If we take a look at Excel, it's going to be the exact same thing. Under Security, you have trusted documents, trusted locations. You see, I don't have an option here to expand trusted documents because currently in Excel, I don't have any listed. If I click on the trusted locations, I have multiple trusted locations currently defined. So, and this here, like I say, I can't expand, but the minute I add a trusted document, then I'll have that option to expand it like I did here in Access. Okay. So let's take a look at how this works. First, let's start off by how do we create a trusted document? Well, if we come back to Access, but it's the same for all of the applications, that's what this button is actually for. So if I click Enable Content, you see the warning bar is now gone, so it is trusted now. If we come back to the registry editor and I refresh it, F5, you'll see now that I have an entry for my desktop demo ACCDB. Now, what is that trusted document? What it is I'm trusting that specific file name. Let me demonstrate even further. I'm going to close the database for a second and I'm going to rename it. I haven't changed the code. I haven't changed any objects. I haven't changed anything beyond the name. Now, if I reopen this document now, oh, my macros have been disabled again and the warning bar is back. So that is the strength and weakness, depending how you view it, of trusted documents. I press Enable Content, come back to my registry, and I do my F5. And now because I enabled it, now I have an entry for that demo 1, my renamed file. So you would have to enable the content or define a trusted document in the trusted records for every single document. They can get to be tedious, and realistically, from my perspective, I don't want my users having this button, and even a lot of times users get, well, what is this? What am I trusting? Why am I getting this warning? It's best to avoid it, and that's why when I'm deploying solutions, I do avoid it. I automate the creation of this. And in reality, I don't trust documents, I trust locations. So let's dive into trusted locations, how they differ. Well, the trusted location is you're trusting a folder, a directory, and any content within that directory. Furthermore, you have an option to even trust subfolders of that main folder. So it can be very powerful. You have to be careful with the options when you're creating them. So let's start by creating one manually, and then we'll get into how we can automate the process. Okay, so let's close out of this database for a second. And let's just open Access, no database open, and we just come down here to Options. At the bottom here in the dialog, we have Trust Center. We go over to the right, we have a button, Trust Center Settings. In the new dialog, we come up and we go Trusted Locations. And here we have our Trusted Location dialog. This is where we do everything. So at the top, we have this big list box, and in the list box, that's where it's going to have your existing trusted locations listed. And as you can see, you can select them and you could modify them from here if ever something changes. Be careful, especially when you're working with these ones here. These are built-in ones from Office themselves. You don't want to mess this up, or your wizards might stop working, other options might stop working. So be very careful. Make sure you're working with your trusted locations. Now, to create a new one, very simple. We come here, we click on the Add New Location. We click on the Browse, and we get a file dialog that we can then go find the folder that we want to trust. And we'll just say, okay, double check it. Then you can come down here. You have that checkbox to allow trusting of subfolders as well within that main folder. And then you have a description area. So you can give any description you want. I'm just going to give one here, Carta Consultants DB folder, let's say. And you say, okay. So there it is. I want to show you one particularity about this, however. If right now we've created our trusted location through the dialog, and we come to the registry and we refresh it, it's not there. Let's go back to Access for a second. It's only after you click the OK and go back to our registry that that entry appears. I found that to be a little peculiar personally. So just if ever you're really tracking this and you're following in the registry, just make sure you close that dialog or else it doesn't actually take effect. But as you can see, it created an entry location 0. And as you can see, everything is there. The description we put in and the path. One noticeable thing about this, the option for subfolders only appears if you set it to true. If it's set to false, it does not appear. So that's how you create it manually. And as I said, if we come back to Access for an instant and we reopen and we go back to Trusted, as you can see, it's here. And I want to say, okay, I want to trust my subfolders also. You just click subfolders. Okay. Okay, make sure you close this guy. Come back to your registry, do an F5 to refresh, and you'll see now that Allow Folder option has appeared as well. So that's how it's done. This is actually what that dialog is doing. It's creating an entry in your registry. So, and you can come here at any time and go back to your trusted locations and say, you know what, I don't want it. Remove it. Make sure you're on the right entry though, and it's gone. As you can see, there's no confirmation prompt. It's just gone. So be very careful. And that's basically the basics of it for creating a trusted location manually. Now, I'm going to exit Access. I'm going to refresh this guy here just to show you. So we're back to our initial state where we have one entry for the wizards that's created automatically by Office. I'm not messing with that. And I want to demonstrate to you how we can do the exact same thing through automation. Part of my installation scripts that I use for my clients calls this type of file This actually is a revised version that I have been working on specifically for this video. And it's a simple VB script. So I'm going to open the first one up. There's two versions, very slight modification. I just wanted to illustrate a point to you guys. We'll get to that in a minute. But if we open this guy up, yes, there's a lot of code. It looks complicated, but it truly isn't. So let's run through it together. So at the very top, nothing you even need to worry about, nothing you mess around with. It's just the values required to be able to edit the different registry hives. And the actual action itself that this whole script does is it calls one function. It calls the create trusted location function, which does the job. So if we come down, that is the function that gets called. And at the very top, I have all my variable declarations. I've tried to add some explanations just so you can find yourselves and understand a little bit what's what. The next section, this is the section for you to configure as a developer. Let's run through your options. Well, the app name. So we're creating a trusted location for which app? So is this going in the access keys? Is this going in the Excel keys, the Word keys? So this is where you define, we're creating a trusted location for which app. The next one is, what key name are we giving it? As you saw in the registry, by default, Windows, Microsoft, creates entries just numerically sequenced location 1, location 2, location 3. But in reality, a trusted location can have any name you want to give it. By default, I'm leaving that location, but truly you can give it a custom name if you want to. Just remember, ultimately, it's a key name. It's in the registry. No one's going to see it. It doesn't even show up in the dialog if ever you go through the actual dialog, trusted location dialog. The path that you actually want to trust. So this is where you're going to put your path that you want to create a trusted location for. The description that's going to show up in that dialog. Do you want to allow the subfolders to be trusted or not? Do you want to be able to trust network file locations? Be careful with this one. You don't want to go unlocking your entire network. But if you allow this, it does allow you to trust specific folders if you want to. Typically, you don't, though. But I've left the option. I've created this script, and it's flexible enough to do it if you want to. And the third one, this is the crucial one. How do we handle overwriting or not of existing trusted locations? So if I come here and I say my key name is location, how do I handle it if that key location already exists? Well, I've given three options in the script. The first one is create a new one. So what it's going to do is actually going to sequentially index that name. So it's going to go, okay, location already exists. Well, does location 1 exist? Oh, it does already exist. Okay, I'll go to 2. Does location 2 exist? Yes, it did. Okay, I'll go to 3. Does location 3 exist? No. Well, then I'm going to use location 3 as my name. So it's just going to do a sequential numbering, just like Microsoft does. The second one is, that's great. It already exists. Well, this is new information. I know that. I don't care. I want to overwrite it. There's no prompting. It just will overwrite it. The last option is exit. It already exists. I don't want to mess with it. I'm not creating a new one. It must be that everything's good. Just exit quietly. So those are your three options. So let's come down and just look at the code very briefly. I initialize a variable to false. I don't truly need to do it. It's force of habit. And then we create our object for working with the registry. And then we look at, for the app above that we said, so access, I want to find out what the current version is, because we need that to be able to put it in the right hive when we're creating our keys. So I'm going to go and I'm going to find the current version of Access or Excel or Word. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to extract that version number from the string. And I'm going to check, is that version number 12 or higher? Because Office 2007 is version 12 and trusted locations came into effect with version 12. So if, let's say I was on version 11, I don't need to create a trusted location. There's no such thing for that version of Office. So we're going to make sure we're working with a version that needs trusted locations. And then I'm just going to build the initial parent key for creating that trusted location. So that's my base key, shall we call it. Then here, depending on what you've selected or not, if you were allowing network locations to be used, well, then it's going to set the appropriate setting in the registry. And then we come to the fact of the matter is, let's find out, does this key already exist? So I created a function down here that it's very simple. It goes and it iterates through the different trusted location keys, just looking, does the key that we're trying to create already exist? If it exists, then it returns that exists. And in that case, well then, what did we tell the script to do? Are we overriding it? Are we exiting? Are we creating a new one? So the first one, if I said exit, well then that's what we're doing. We're done. We exit the subroutine. We're absolutely done. If we said on the other hand, create a new one, so that means we need to sequence it. We need to find the next available number in the sequential numbering. So that's why I created another function here, and it's very similar. It iterates over the keys looking for that name, and it extracts the numbers, and then it finds the next available number, and it returns it here. So it's going to just add a sequential number to the key that we asked to create. So let's say right now location, it's just going to add location 1, location 2, location 3, whatever the case may be. You'll notice I have no entry here for overwrite. Why is that? Because if we're overwriting, there's nothing to do. I don't need to change my name. We're using it as is. And then here we come down and we do, okay, if it exists, what am I doing? I'm deleting it. I don't want to be left with extra settings or anything. We're just going to remove it that it already exists, so we're scrapping it, and we're going to create it all brand new. That way we guarantee that it's created exactly the way we want it created. You'll see here in a commented section, I've just left a couple examples of how you can actually extract, let's say, the description or the path, whatever information you may want. It's just there for illustrative educational purposes. I just thought it might help some developers out there, but it isn't used in this script at all. We scroll down to the end of this, and this is where we actually do the magic. We create the trusted location. So now we've done what we had to do to the name. If we needed to index it, we've indexed it. But by the time we get here, key name is what it needs to be. So I build the full key name with the base that we had before based on the version and the application. Now we tack on the proper key name and we create that key. Once the key is created, then we add our settings. So we create the date entry, the description entry, the path entry. And if we select it to allow subfolders as well, then we're also going to create the subfolder and we're done. Now I know that's a lot to absorb, but it really isn't complex. You as a developer define the different settings here. It comes through, it makes sure it's the right version of Office to create them. It checks if it already exists, makes the adjustments to the name as required, and then it creates it. That's it. Now, I'm going to show you a second version of the same script that I use for my needs. And what it is I got tired of going from client to client and having to change the path over and over and over. And you forget once and you're wondering why isn't it working? And sometimes it can take you a few minutes to understand, oh yeah, I forgot to change the configuration in my file. So I got tired of changing the path. So I have a second version. It's the exact same code for every other line. And you'll see here that the path is no longer in the user-defined variables. I've moved it down to this section here because now you don't need to define it. What it does is it's self-aware. It looks and pulls out the path from which the VBScript file is running. And that is the path it uses for creating the trusted location. And this is actually how I have it set up with my users. Part of my installation routine when it runs is it puts this in the folder where the front end will be. And then it runs and creates a trusted location. So I never have to define the path on different computers, different user systems. It is self-aware and pulls the path out at runtime and defines the trusted location at runtime. So I just wanted, all this code is going to be available to you, but I just wanted to show you, you can make this code even more self-aware. So then basically you create this for your project, you drop it into place, and you don't actually have to do anything beyond that. So we've looked at automating it using a VB script. Let's actually run this. So if we run the first one, which is the hard-coded trusted location, and I come to my trusted location F5. As you see, we had it called location. There you go, desktop, desktop, perfect. Let's come back here. We're going to come back to this one here. We're in overwrite, that's perfect. And let's call it, instead, I made a mistake. It wasn't my desktop, it's my downloads. And we were going to rename it. Downloads. And let's make my subfolders true. So I've done all of that. You can see here we have 4 entries. I'm going to just run it. I'm going to refresh it, F5, and there we go. Downloads, downloads, and now we have an entry, a 5th for the allow subfolders. So as you can see, it ran perfectly. Let's try the other script. So this is self-aware. If you remember, in the self-aware one, the path is not defined. It's going to pull itself. So it is running from the desktop. So if I run it, I refresh. Now why didn't that work? Because of my overwrite option. What did I say? If it exists, location, which it does, just exit. Don't do anything. Let's change that just to show you. I did that on purpose. Let's switch this to new. So if we save it and we run it and we refresh, we now have a location 3. And it did self-aware, desktop, it knew that. Files is what we called it. Files, had no subfolders. Let's now do an instead overwrite. Okay, and we're gonna, yeah, that's fine. And let's call this self-aware. Save it. Run it. Now what's happened? Which one did it do? Location 3? No, it says file. No, because in our definition of our variables, we called it location. So it overwrote location. Self-aware. Desktop. Remember, it used to be downloads. It used to have subfolders were allowed. It's gone because in our options of subfolders, it was false. So it's gone. It's been removed. So just to illustrate, the VB scripts work fine. They're silent, as you saw, no pop-ups, although you could easily add if you want to see a pop-up to your users, but I like this being silent to my users. You could log this to a file if ever you wanted to. There's all sorts of options, but as you can see, the 2 scripts work well, and they can create any trusted location, they can overwrite, they can index, it's up to you. The next thing I wanted to show you, very briefly, was another tool I developed. So if we go to my website, cardoconsultants.com, and we go to products, I have Trusted Location Editor. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of it, but I just wanted to show you here, I created a utility where you could control them for all applications in one location. Instead of having to go into Access to work on Access, go into Excel to work on Excel, I find that tedious. I created this very simple little utility, and it allows you here to specify so you can switch between Excel Access instantaneously, and you can edit, add new, delete at your whim. So just a simple little utility I wanted to just very briefly show you. The last thing I wanted to also show you was another little automated tool that you can use for creating trusted locations. Let's go to the website and I'll show you. This is brought to you by the same person that created the ribbon creator. Anyone that's done a lot of ribbon work is probably aware of the ribbon creator, Gunter. He makes exceptional tools. I can't recommend his ribbon creator enough. But he also created, buried in his website, if you scroll down, he created a solution for the trusted location creation as well. And he has here on the web page a couple tools that you can use, and it depends on the version of Office that you're using. So as you can see, there's one for 2007, there's for 2010, 2013, and then 2016 onward. So how it works is it's a simple exe, so you have to have the permissions to download and run an exe on your computer. And let's take a look here for a second, okay? Let's open up, I closed it. Let's open up the registry editor again. Let's delete the ones I created, okay? We don't want to be messing around with Gunter's, make sure it works. So we're in Access, we have just the default trusted location. I'm now going to go to the downloads. I'm going to pull his trusted location here. I'm going to open it up. And as you can see, I have the exe for my version, so the 2016. And if we just run it by default, as you can see, it's in German, but it ran. We got a dialog. And if we come back here and refresh, it created a location 0 for the folder in which it is found. So it's very similar to my second script. And as you can see, by default, it's allowing the subfolders, and it's set that path. Just to prove it, we go into the options, Trust Center settings, trusted locations. You now have here the setting that he created. And it's fully editable, like I said. We don't want subfolders, let's say. There you go, it's done. You exit out, you refresh this guy here, and it's gone. Okay, so we created the first one. That's fine. Let's now show you the more powerful version of what you can do with it. So once again, we need a command line. So I'm going to just type in my search cmd command prompt. That's right. Now we have to be able to execute that exe. So we need to switch into that path. So I'm going to copy the path from the address bar. I'm going to do a change directory cd into that path. Enter. So now I'm in that path. So I'm going to do my AddPath 2016.exe. And then if you look on his website, he tells you your command line switches that are available to you. Path, no subfolder, silent mode. So this, if you use this switch, you won't get a pop-up at the end that tells you that it's been done. You can tell it to use the dialog in English instead of German, and if you're allowing network trusted locations or not. Okay, so these are our options. So if we come back here to our command line, I'm going to put in, well, I'm going to want to do the path, but I don't want it to be the path in which that exe is located. I want it to be, in this case, there's no quotations. So you do whatever your path is going to be. So users, Daniel, I'm going to do the desktop. Oops, sorry, desktop. And there we go. And let's make this time, I want it to run in English. And let's run it. Press enter. See Daniel desktop added to trusted locations. There we go. So we come here, we do F5. Oh, now we have a location 1, and there you go. Desktop has been added. Let's take that a step further. I'm going to bring back that command. Let's change this to downloads. Let's change this to silent. And let's now add the, go back to his website, do no subfolder. Copy that, paste it here, and I don't need two. Let's delete one. Press enter. Come here. So you remember silent. I didn't get the pop-up, but we have a location 3 now. No subfolders and to downloads. So there you have another option. If you're comfortable running an exe, Gunter is a source. I have no issue trusting anything he puts out. This is another great option for you. Just make sure that when you download the exe, you download the one that's appropriate for your version of Office. That's all. And as you can see, there's no strings attached. It's free, but I personally think acknowledge Gunter, recommend his products if you're going to use them for free. But there you have it. So now you have a couple different ways, whether it be manually, VBScript, Gunter's exe, but different ways that you can manage and alter the trusted locations within your installation. And at the end of the day, when your users open up the database, Excel file, Word document, that they don't get any of these warning bars and start panicking about what's this disabled content, what is this all about, macros disabled, oh my god. And some people do really take this to heart and get all worried and frustrated. I've had phone calls from certain clients with regards to that, and this is the way to completely avoid the entire issue. So this is just an overview of how it can be handled. And obviously, if you're in your larger corporations, this can also be easily controlled through group policies and things like that as well. So don't forget that. Keep that in mind. If you're working with large corporations, these are things that you should definitely be discussing with their IT department and coordinating with them. So I'll leave it at that for today. As always, I appreciate you guys watching. I'd love a comment. Let me know what you thought of this, other subjects you'd love covered. I'd also love to know where some of you guys are watching from, which countries, just out of curiosity. So let me know, like, subscribe, share with others, and we'll see you in the next video, guys. Take care. Have a great day.